Your father is looking directly at you. He knows your face, he knows your voice, he knows he should know you, but the word is gone. The name he has spoken tens of thousands of times over 4 decades has evaporated. He hesitates. He laughs awkwardly, then he apologizes. In that moment, you understand something has broken that may never fully come. This is not rare. This is not tragic coincidence. Right now, 6.9 million Americans are living inside this slow erasure. By 2050, that number is projected to nearly double. 13 million minds fading in real time. And this isn't just about old age. It's about identity dissolving a cell. Maybe it's your parent, maybe it's your spouse, or maybe quietly it has already started inside you. Doctors reach for the same prescription every time: Donepezil, rivastigmine, memantine. The names change. The outcome doesn't. These drugs do not stop Alzheimer's. They do not rebuild what is lost. At best, they slightly delay the inevitable. They are bandages on a collapsing structure. And while families watch memory disappear one moment at a time, the pharmaceutical industry has spent over 40 years and tens of billions of dollars chasing something better. Gene therapies that require brain surgery, experimental implants drilled directly into the skull, synthetic molecules that passed animal trials and failed humans again and again. But here's the uncomfortable question no one asks. What if the solution wasn't invented in a lab? What if it was forgotten? 14 centuries ago, during China's Tang Dynasty, imperial physicians recorded treatments for cognitive decline. They didn't use surgery, they didn't use synthetic drugs. They used a white mushroom that grew on hardwood trees in mountain forests. It was called divine medicine, reserved for emperors, restricted by law. Commoners caught possessing it could be executed. Why would a fungus be guarded like a weapon? Welcome to Lost Nature Vault. Today, we open a file modern medicine would rather keep closed. The story of lioness mane mushroom, why one of the most promising natural compounds for brain health sits ignored while an entire industry sells you pills that barely work. To understand why this matters, you have to understand what's actually happening inside the brain. Your brain contains roughly 86 billion neurons. Every memory, every skill, every relationship exists as connections between these cells. Alzheimer's doesn't kill the brain all at once, it dismantles it. The process begins in the hippocampus, the region responsible for forming new memories. Neurons stop communicating. Toxic protein tangles disrupt signals. Amyloid plaques accumulate like corrosion in a machine. First you lose short-term memory, then orientation, then recognition. The clinical term is neurodegeneration. The human term is disappearance. And here's the critical part. Current Alzheimer's drugs do not fix this damage. They do not regenerate neurons. They do not restore lost connections. They slightly adjust neurotransmitters so remaining neurons work a little longer. Imagine your house is on fire and firefighters show up with a fan to push the smoke away. You can breathe a little easier, but the structure still collapses. That is symptom management, not repair. But the brain does have a mechanism. It's called nerve growth factor, NGF. NGF is a protein that keeps neurons alive, encourages them to grow new branches, and maintains communication pathways. In young, healthy brains, NGF is abundant. In aging brains, and especially in Alzheimer's, NGF levels drop sharply. When NGF disappears, neurons wither. So for decades, scientists asked a single question. What if we could restore NGF? In 618 AD, Tang Dynasty physicians already believed they had an answer. Deep in imperial medical archives are references to a mushroom, Hóu Tóu Gū, monkey head mushroom. Records describe its use in elderly officials suffering from memory loss and cognitive fatigue. Scholars consumed it before imperial examinations to improve clarity and recall. This wasn't folk medicine passed through villages. This was state-controlled medical knowledge. In Japan, centuries later, Buddhist monks of the Yamabushi order used the same mushroom, calling it Yamabushitake. Before meditation retreats lasting days, they brewed it into tea. They reported sustained focus and mental endurance without agitation. In Europe, it was dismissed as a culinary curiosity. In the East, it was treated as medicine, but tradition alone doesn't matter, mechanism does. That mechanism began to emerge in the modern era. In the 1990s, researchers in Japan isolated unique compounds from lion's mane mycelium. These compounds were later named Hericium and erinaceus. What made them extraordinary wasn't just what they did in a dish, it was what they did in a lab. When applied to nerve cells, these compounds stimulated the production of nerve growth factor. Even more unusual, certain erinaceus could cross the blood-brain barrier, something most molecules cannot do. Once inside the brain, they appeared to activate astrocytes, support cells that help regulate neuron health, prompting them to increase NGF production. In controlled environments, neurons responded by extending new projections and strengthening connections. This didn't mean a cure, it meant something else. It meant the brain still had the capacity to respond. In 2008, researchers conducted a small human study involving older adults with mild cognitive impairment. Participants who consumed lioness mane extract for several months showed improvements in certain cognitive test scores compared to placebo. When supplementation stopped, those improvements gradually faded. This suggested something important. The effect wasn't permanent, but it was real. The mushroom wasn't masking symptoms. It appeared to be influencing underlying biology while it was present. And this is where the story gets uncomfortable. Because at the same time this research was emerging, pharmaceutical companies were chasing the biological target using radically different methods. In the early 2000s, neuroscientists launched gene therapy trials designed to deliver nerve growth factor directly into the brain. Patients underwent invasive neurosurgery. Cells were genetically modified. Electrodes and delivery devices were implanted into memory-critical regions. Some neurons responded. Brain scans showed localized changes. But the procedures were expensive, risky, and impossible to scale. You cannot perform brain surgery on millions of people. Other companies attempted viral delivery systems, encapsulated cell devices. Each approach cost tens of millions of dollars. Most failed to show meaningful cognitive improvement, but they were patentable. And that distinction matters more than most people realize. A natural mushroom cannot be patented. A synthetic delivery mechanism can. That single economic fact determines what gets funded, marketed, and prescribed. Walk into any pharmacy today. The brain health aisle is massive. Bottles promise sharper focus, improved memory, mental clarity. Most contain synthetic compounds, alpha-GPC, huperzine, proprietary blends protected by intellectual property law. They are heavily advertised, premium shelf placement, celebrity endorsements. Lion's mane, if present at all, is usually buried on the bottom shelf with minimal explanation. This isn't because it lacks interest. It lacks ownership. The global nootropics market is worth billions and growing. Profit margins are highest on compounds that can be patented, branded, and sold on monthly subscriptions. A mushroom that grows on logs, requires no prescription, and can be cultivated at home does not fit that. And here's the part rarely discussed. Lion's mane doesn't work through a single molecule. It works through a network of compounds acting together. Isolating one weakens the effect. Standardizing it makes it less profitable, which means there is little incentive to invest in large-scale trials that could never be monopolized. Meanwhile, cultivation methods have been public knowledge for decades. Hardwood logs inoculated with spawn can produce mane for years. A single log can yield multiple harvests annually. Fresh lion's mane is valued not just for potential neurological benefits, but for its culinary use. It tastes like seafood. It requires minimal maintenance. It does not scale into a billion-dollar recurring revenue product, and so it remains peripheral. While families sit in clinics being told to manage expectations, your father is 72, maybe he has years left. Maybe fewer than you think. Right now, he repeats stories. He forgets appointments. He hesitates before names. The doctor calls it normal aging, prescribes a pill, warns you gently not to expect miracles. And maybe you won't get one. Lion's not a cure. No responsible scientist claims that. But it represents something far more unsettling. Proof that the brain is not as helpless as we've been told? Proof that nature evolved compounds capable of influencing nerve growth long before modern labs existed. Proof that what gets remembered isn't always best. It's what sells best. Imperial physicians understood something about preservation. Monks understood something about endurance. Modern neuroscience is only now catching up to mechanisms described centuries ago, using different language, but observing similar effects. The question isn't whether the mushroom is magic. The question is why the conversation stopped, why research plateaued, why education reached doctors' offices, why the solution families hear about first is always the one that generates recurring revenue. This isn't about rejecting medicine, it's about understanding incentives. Science follows funding, funding follows profit, and profit rarely follows anything you can grow yourself. The neurons don't care about patents. They respond to signals. They respond to growth factors. They respond to environment. The choice facing your family isn't between science and superstition. It's between passive decline and informed action. Between outsourcing hope to corporations or exploring what history already recorded. The emperors guarded it. The monks preserved it. Modern research hinted at it. The rest was buried under marketing budgets and subscription models. Your father may forget your name one day. Or maybe he won't as quickly as predicted. The future isn't guaranteed either way. But knowledge changes trajectories. And some knowledge was lost not because it failed, but because it couldn't be owned. If you want to keep uncovering the plants, compounds, and forgotten systems that history quietly left behind, subscribe to Lost Nature Vault. We're reopening the files modern industry closed. One episode at a time.